The radical, miserable left has noticed our awesome Great American Road Trip trailer, and they hate it. It's too wholesome. It's too patriotic. It's too joyful. Welcome to the Atlanta Current. I'm Vince Martin, here as always with Tull McAdoo from the Irish Politics newsletter. We open there with a tweet from Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, taking aim at liberals who are criticizing his new project, Tull. We're going to talk about this up front. We've got some other kind of minor fun scandals to talk about. This one here, I think, is pretty interesting. The short version of the story, it was reported on Friday that Sean Duffy and his wife, Rachel Campos Duffy, their 9 children, have been taking a road trip across America that they have been filming for a reality series called The Great American Road Trip.
Hello, listeners. Vincent, everybody loves a great American road trip. Who doesn't? There's been countless movies made about it, yeah?
Of course, yeah.
Who broke this story?
Well, I don't know if broke's the right word. Duffy himself just went on Fox News and announced it, which I think is really a fun aspect of the story. Because people are criticizing the fact that a sitting cabinet secretary is filming a road trip with his family while he's ostensibly supposed to be working. Quite obviously, Duffy doesn't agree.
Right. It was a 7-month vacation. You know, the equivalent in Ireland is the Minister for Transport, Vincent.
Right.
And let me tell you, if Darragh O'Brien, the Minister for Transport in Ireland, swanned off for 7 months on a road trip around Ireland, by the time he got back to Dublin, there would have been a lynch mob waiting for him.
Yeah. I mean, the thing I would say, it is getting characterized a little bit as a seven-month vacation because this was filmed over 7 months. Duffy has pointed out, and I think accurately, that this took place in chunks over 7 months.
That's okay. So that's fine. That's grand. That's okay. I mean, he must have been busy as transport secretary. It's okay that he was able to have the time to do these big road trips.
In the tweet we quoted, he did make sure to point out that they were filmed in one or 2 day chunks. I thought it was very funny. He said it was either on weekends or during the kids' school breaks, which was like, yeah, I don't think we're real worried that your kids were missing school. I don't think that's really where the outrage is coming from. It's just, I'm pretty sure your kids' school break don't line up with cabinet secretary breaks, right? You're supposed to be working, and there have been things going wrong under his watches. We've had airplane crashes and multiple incidents at airports and all these sorts of things. So I get the outrage a little bit, certainly.
I mean, I think it's justified outrage, Vincent. As you alluded to there's been a lot of incidents with planes clipping each other and smashing into each other in airports. Lots of near misses. I think 2 pilots died in the last couple of weeks, and a couple of months, maybe a month ago. In Newark, I think, was it? Could be wrong
and there's
here.
Another fatality this weekend of someone on a runway. Yep.
Yes, a small jet crashed in Minnesota, killed a state legislator, I believe. And Sean Duffy, who sounds like he could be from West Cork, another Irish American in the Trump administration, or regime. He's making videos about road trips. I just think it's kind of inappropriate on lots of levels. And maybe that's my liberal European communism shining through here. But
I was curious as to your take on it, because there are 2 ways to look at it. And Duffy's point that he makes later in that tweet, when he's not trying to play the just exhausting, right, indignant / over-aggressive victim. Somehow I don't know how they get all that combination of toxicity into like 12 words, but they're brilliant at it. You know, that this is a nice thing. It's for America's 250th anniversary. It is, supposed to give families ideas for what to do.
Vincent, can I come in there?
Sure.
They took all 9 kids on the road trip with them.
I'm not sure that they all went, because this is just, they haven't released the series. One of the older children, I believe it's the oldest child, her husband is actually running for the House of Representatives in Wisconsin, where Sean Duffy's from. Is getting some help from some campaign contributions that Duffy shifted around, which themselves raised a couple concerns, $1 million moving from this political action committee to another. So I don't know that the oldest ones are on there. But yeah, and that's the point people have made. It's Sean Duffy and his wife have come out and said, oh, well, we didn't get paid for it. like, that's not really a win. Like, that's not something in your favor.
Well, let me ask you this, Vincent. Who paid for this?
Well, that's another problem.
He didn't do it out of the goodness of his heart to show the Americans how to, vacation during the summer or something like that. I mean, this wasn't some
That's
sort of
exactly what he was
movement.
doing. Didn't you listen to him? He is doing this out of the goodness of his heart. He is being a role model for Americans who need to get off their screens, who, as his wife very unfortunately put it in the Fox News interview, she said that, let's face it, we live in a PornHub world.
She said that?
Yeah.
Wow. We live in a PornHub world.
We live in a PornHub world. And I obviously, I have no idea what PornHub is. I'm guessing it is a hub for adult entertainment. There's no way I ever would have heard of such a thing. But yeah, that's what she said in promoting this. She was trying to make the point that this is very wholesome content, which I guess is true, but I'm not sure why that was the counterpart.
Well, I'm sure they weren't going to practice making their 10 children live on the TV for this reality TV show, were they? I mean, it was paid for by, who did you say again? Let me say who was
It's paid for by an apparently recently created nonprofit organization, which, so no taxpayer dollars are used. But of course, the nonprofit is funded by companies like Toyota and United Airlines, who are regulated by the Department of Transportation that Duffy leads, right? So you can see Duffy's point a little bit if you try and be open-minded, right? And let's point out, too, they are both used to this. They are reality television stars. That's actually how these two met.
Okay.
Sean
it wasn't
Duffy
on PornHub they met, no?
It was not. Okay. It was not. That is just one of the stranger lines. I'm amazed Fox didn't somehow find a way to edit that out. Sean Duffy kind of got his fame nationally on a show called The Real World. Have you guys ever heard of this?
Good grief. I know American reality TV infects every strata of Irish society, Vincent, but even I haven't heard of that one.
Okay. I always feel bad asking those questions if you guys have heard of something, because if you have heard of it, then I feel like I'm treating you guys like you just got television 6 years ago and you have no idea what's going on. And if you haven't heard of it, then I feel like an arrogant American, like, what do you mean you haven't heard of The Real World? Where have you guys been?
Oh, it's called The Real World, is it?
Yeah, it started in the 90s. The short version is it's basically the original reality show. Okay. They threw 20-somethings into big, fancy apartments. It was New York, and then they went all over the country. And it is the show that really created the template for modern American reality shows. It's a hugely influential show. So anyways, Duffy got on there, and then he met his wife on a kind of a spin-off version of that. And yeah, they have 9 kids. So they are used to this, I think, as an idea. And I think in their heart of hearts, probably part of them do think that it is what Duffy's saying. This is a patriotic, nice thing to show Americans what to do. It's also telling, though, I think, that it does not seem to have occurred to anyone in the administration. The problems that we're bringing up are pretty obvious. They're going, oh, no, we didn't get paid. You're getting compensation.
Yes.
You've got 7 kids on a luxury coach bus staying in hotels all over the country. We know it's not coming out of your pocket. At the very least, Duffy's wife and children are getting a free vacation, which
free
appears
lunch.
Accounted for weeks over the course of these 7 months. I mean, that's thousands and thousands of dollars in value. And one of the things I think it really gets to is Trump and his supporters, I think, are so used to the idea that norms are bad and norms are used against them that this gets to the idea that norms also exist for a little bit of a reason, which is that stuff like this really looks like it looks bad. And it matters that it looks bad. It's not just, idiot liberals hate America. No, it's a reasonable thing to say that a cabinet secretary should not be filming a reality show while he's working. I mean, let's not overcomplicate this, right?
Now, I have to admit something from this side of the pond, Vincent. CRH, a leading provider of building materials and a massive, massive multi-jurisdiction company, which is Irish, probably one of the most famous Irish companies that you don't hear about, has its headquarters in Dublin, is one of the main sponsors of this.
Oh, how about that? All right. Yeah, I mean, Google's on there. There are legit companies on there. And I don't think it's unreasonable to make the case that this is essentially a bribe. Now you can say like, oh, it's not a bribe in the sense that Duffy hasn't solicited, Duffy hasn't asked for favors, but this is a payoff to a sitting, this is a lot of money. Like I said, it's fascinating to me in the sense of norms. It's fascinating to me in the sense of what Trump supporters have said that Obama's been stealing and Clinton was stealing and Hunter Biden was stealing. And then he just goes on Fox News like, oh, yeah, we're doing this. I was supposed to be at work, but yeah, all these multinational companies just chipped in to pay so my family could go on a vacation. He's legitimately on Fox News just promoting it like this is completely normal. And it really
boasting
is just
about it, Vincent. He's boasting about it almost.
Boasting about it, promoting it. Absolutely. Yeah. It does not occur to him. Yeah. No. I mean, that's the thing. If you watch that interview, and as is often the case with Fox News interviews, we will not recommend that our listeners watch it. It is excruciating. And it's excruciating a different way from those Kash Patel videos.
There's something that struck me also about those sponsorships.
Okay.
I'm seeing the Grand Canyon, Brand USA. Lots of companies that are also funded by the American taxpayer.
Yeah.
So the money is sloshing around there between taxpayer-funded institutions. And as you said, he's getting a 7-month vacation. Of course, it's not a 7-month continuous vacation, but he's getting a vacation paid for by the very companies he's paid to regulate.
Right.
So as terrible as Europe is and how poor, we all know how poor.
Yeah, we just did a whole episode on it.
We have very, very serious regulations about that in Ireland and Europe. You just wouldn't get away with it, full stop. And I'm surprised to see the big names like Toyota and Google and other European and friendly countries there, and they're kind of like saying, yeah, this is okay. This is how we're doing business in the United States. And a wink and a nudge, a nod, tip the cap. It reminds me of Ireland in the 1990s and the brown envelopes sloshing around the place between property developers and politicians. There's that kind of vibe off it, Vincent.
Yeah. Yeah, now I think they, if you could get representatives from their companies, they would say, again, look, we funded a nonprofit. Again, they would probably take the Duffy line that this is just meant to be patriotic. And the problem, again, I think even if you give them the most generous interpretation of what they're trying to do, I don't think this is a situation where Duffy, was in his office trying to scam a way to get, a free vacation for his kids. However, this idea came about, and there are already a couple different conflicting explanations. I don't think it's quite as sinister as people would like it to jump out to.
It looks sinister to me, Vincent. It looks sinister to me.
That's interesting because, to me, I don't think it's sinister. I think it's stupid. I think it's incompetent. I think the political messaging also, a lot of people pointed this out, going on Fox News and bragging about how you're taking your 7 kids on a road trip is really dumb when your boss just spiked gas to almost $5 a gallon with the war. I mean, a lot of people have made that point. Read the room, man.
The optics, like we'd like to say in the Ireland, the optics of it are desperate. And I have a golden rule in politics, Vincent. It's not often what it is, but more likely what it looks like as opposed to what it is. Very often a politician could do something quite innocent and he has very innocent intentions, but a more cynical observer and a social media, the way social media works is that they'll twist it into the darkest, most damaging, most corrupt, most terrible outlook on what this person's just done, and it's going to come through on social media. The optics are terrible. Gas is pushing $5 a gallon. The price of everything's skyrocketing as well, not just here in Ireland, but in the USA. But not only that, it just looks corrupt. Even if the regulations in the United States are saying, no, it's not corruption. By any other yardstick in any other jurisdiction in the Western world or the first world, it would be considered corruption. I don't think you can't get away from that. And maybe I used the word sinister was probably the wrong word. And like you said, you're probably right there. It's not sinister, but it's incredibly stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is a little bit of that don't mistake for malice what can be explained by incompetence.
Exactly.
I'm surprised Duffy doesn't see that, though. You will be shocked to know that he is a former Fox News host himself.
Shock horror.
Yep. Trump seems to have found him there.
Can I ask you a question, Vincent?
Sure.
Do we know how many ex-Fox News people are working for the Trump regime?
Kind of depends on who you ask. The number, I think, is nearing like 2 dozen.
Right.
I mean, there's two cabinet secretaries, Duffy and also Hegseth, of course. Tulsi Gabbard, who's the head of national intelligence, she was on Fox News. Kash Patel's number 2 was a Fox News broadcaster. He's now back in the podcast world. Jeanine Pirro, who is getting floated for attorney general. She's a Fox News regular. It's a wild, wild number. I mean,
Pete Hegseth was one, wasn't he?
Yeah. On like Saturday night. Yeah, I think we've joked about that too. He wasn't even like a good Fox News contributor. He was on like the weekends, like they're literally one of their lowest rated time slots. Yeah.
Dan Bongino
is Patel's number 2. Yep. Yeah, it's really wild.
It is nuts, yes. I mean,
and they're in positions of power. I mean, that's the one thing that you do have to emphasize, right? These are people who are getting decision-making capability, that he basically watched them on Fox and liked them and put them in the government. It really, I can't think of a parallel. I mean, obviously there's not a parallel in America. I'm sure there's no parallel in Ireland, even in like the UK and reform. Nigel Farage isn't pulling people off GB News or anything, is he?
No, he's not. No, but they're his biggest supporters. But the lines are quite blurred between celebrity world, business world, Fox world, Trump world. When the lines are quite blurred like that, Vincent, it might not necessarily be corrupt, but it looks quite corrupt.
Duffy, let's say, he was actually a Republican congressman. He was a competitive lumberjack before he became a reality television star up in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, which is like, I mean, there's contests about log rolling and tree climbing and chainsawing and all these sorts of things. So, maybe that did a little bit for him other than Fox News. But yeah, that part of it is just so weird. I don't quite see what Trump's thought process is in seeing that as fertile ground for people who are going to execute his mission, let's say.
And his mission seems to be just to make himself more wealthy. He makes him and his family more wealthy. I mean, according to various financial outlets, the Trump family has increased its net worth by $4 billion since January 2025. That's a serious chunk of change.
Yeah, they've done a lot, which I think is itself kind of an interesting story, because there is a very strange example that pushes back against the narrative that Trump is doing this to enrich himself and to enrich his family. And I will say this, I think you're probably going to have an aneurysm when I say this. You may quit the podcast.
Okay.
In this term, I actually don't think he himself has been corrupt.
Oh,
I legitimately don't.
God. Oh,
I know.
My God.
It's over.
Go on. Show me your apples. Tell me why.
I don't think he's done anything. People around him absolutely have. His children, his 2 sons, Donald Jr. and Eric in particular, I think have capitalized to just a ridiculous degree and done some very, very shady things. The one exception where I have seen him do things where you could say, boy, man, that looks like corruption is around his pardon. There was a great article last week about basically there's an entire economy in D.C. of lawyers and consultants and hangers-on who are now promising people an increased chance of a pardon because they have the connections that can get to Trump. The one famous case I wrote about last year was a guy, he started a company that was manufacturing hydrogen-powered trucks. Committed.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, Trevor Milton, his name was, just garden variety shareholder fraud, just absolutely lied. Listeners may have seen this story referenced. They said that they had a self-driving truck, and actually they had just literally pushed it down a hill.
Down the hill, yeah.
Yeah, the truck had no engine. They found a hill in Utah that was like the perfect grade where if you took the right angle, it looked flat, but they could just push it in. And Trump pardoned him. And people are like, oh boy, it's corruption because Milton decided he was Republican and he gave like $750,000 to a Republican PAC. $750,000 to Donald Trump's political future. He doesn't care. He's not doing that.
The Binance guy, he pardoned the Binance guy as well.
Yeah,
so
that
Vincent,
one's tougher.
Let me push back here on this, right? Okay, the Binance guy, Binance have been involved in some very, very shady operations, highlighted by numerous media organizations. They've been essentially funding terrorism, corruption.
Yeah.
All the bad things in the world. North Korea, come on, who's doing business with North Korea? And Trump goes and pardons him. It's not for any altruistic reason, Vincent.
I think the reason is somebody got in his ear and told him that it was unfair, and in particular told him that this person had been prosecuted by Biden.
Okay, so
that to me seems much more the recurring theme of these pardons. Milton happened the same way. He comes out, I was told it was an unfair because Milton's attorney was Pam Bondi's brother.
Okay.
So he had an ear. To me, it just seems over and over again, he has completely swallowed the conspiracy theory that he himself kind of began, that, the government was weaponized under Biden. So if you go to him and say the Biden DOJ convicted this person and it was a headline case, I think Trump's initial response is, oh, that must have been false. Mm-hmm. Even though, as in these cases, the case of Milton was slam dunk. The case of Binance, I mean, there are text messages in the indictment of them texting back and forth going, oh, yeah, we really shouldn't be doing this. Oh, yeah, we're helping criminals. This is just terrible. I mean, what they did is obvious. It's not a matter of weaponization.
Well, Vincent, let me push back there against this.
Okay.
I mean, you never saw Vito Corleone murder anybody, did you?
No, there's a plausible deniability aspect.
And he Trump as the patriarch of the Trump family. It doesn't matter if you didn't catch him in the kitchen with the knife in his hand dripping with blood. He's still in charge of that family. And the buck stops with him, from the words from another famous American president. I mean, ultimately, the buck stops with him. So
right.
The picture you're painting is either one or two things. He's an incredibly stupid man if he's just believing anything anybody tells him, or he's massively corrupt. And for me, Occam's razor here, the most obvious answer is the one staring you in the face. So,
which of those two is the one staring you in the face?
Well, it's the fact that he's massively corrupt. I think that, and then I can't get away from that. I can't. If this was in Europe and grand were communists and terrible liberals and all that jazz, he would have been impeached 2 months into his office.
Yeah.
He would have been hauled out of the court. He would have been, if he was in Russia, he would have been thrown out a window. But, and you're right. I think the pardons are probably a more obvious window into his corruption. I think more so than anything else.
Right.
They kind of highlight the chinks in the armor, so to speak, of anybody defending him against corruption, is that the pardons do actually paint a very different picture, like you're saying.
I think that's fair. I mean, you said, it's either he's stupid enough to believe whatever people whisper in his ear, or it's corruption. I mean,
you're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. I don't think it's in the middle, to be honest with you. We have over 10 years of evidence now and multiple reports and multiple first-hand accounts that he does just believe that things that people whisper in his ear, particularly if they're things that align with what he wants to hear. He absolutely does. I mean, that's just not up for debate. And we're talking about doing like a massive biography of Trump as a person, kind of this multi-part thing a little later this year. If you go back to when he started his business career in New York in the 1970s, he gets a huge boost from something that I think people don't necessarily know, which is that his father is enormously well connected with the Democratic Party of Brooklyn. And in fact, by the time Trump starts building in Manhattan, the mayor of New York City is literally a family friend. There are stories when Trump starts doing his first deals, people are like, well, why am I going to work with you? You're 28. You've never done this before. He goes, well, call the mayor. He'll vouch for me. I mean, Trump literally says that. New York City politics at the time has a healthy amount of corruption. It really does. It's not suitcases full of $500,000 in cash going to Gracie Mansion in New York or things like that. But it is, some of these departments are always run by, a city councilman's cousin, or there's no bid contracts that go. Like, there is kind of a sense that everybody gets a taste. And I think Trump, to some degree, is influenced by seeing that. This is what the world is, right? People in power, the people around them get a benefit from it. So I don't think he's like morally, upset that Eric and Donald are doing all these shady crypto deals and things like that. I don't think he personally is pushing into those deals. I don't think they are on the phone with him. Now, granted, the big problem here is they don't have to be on the phone with him, right?
Yeah, look, and again, I'm going to give you some pushback there, okay? I mean, if we weren't pushing back at each other, we're just two guys talking in the pub otherwise. So, yeah. So you have the Trump organization, and it's signing lucrative deals in cities around the world and that kind of stuff, where the United States Department of State is also conducting foreign policy.
Yeah.
Okay. So his son-in-law, the soulless-looking Jared Kushner, he's making business deals at some of the same countries in which he's negotiating on behalf of his president. I mean, it's just all too murky. And the Trump organization, they have their crypto stuff. A Syrian billionaire recently got sanctions lifted from his country. There's an offer to open a Trump-branded golf course in Syria, I think. I mean, come on. And let's go have a 4-ball there where, there's chemical weapons raining down on top of us from the lake that's been installed, Are you looking at this with rose-tinted glasses, my friend?
I'm looking at it in the sense that I don't dispute that any of this is happening. I just don't think he actually on a day-to-day basis cares. When people go, oh, he's corrupt, he's doing these things because he's corrupt. I think he does the things he does first and foremost because of what he believes. I don't think he's making decisions that black and white are shaped by his financial interests. Now, everything that's going on around him is awful. It looks bad. I think it does wind up affecting his interests. You know, the stuff with Howard Lutnick and crypto and his sons and his firm is a huge and underreported problem. I think when people argue that he is doing these things because he is corrupt, I don't think it's right. And I think it's problematic because it makes it much more difficult for his opponents to push back politically, because it allows them to ignore a big problem, which is that he is doing these things because his base wants him to. And because a lot of Americans, even if they don't necessarily support him, actually do agree with some of these policies.
Which policies? With the corruption policies? I mean, he's trying to force the IRS to pay him $10 billion now in restitution for, mishandling his tax affairs. Okay, so he's in charge of that. He's the president of the country, This is not me. I'm not pulling these from my back pocket. I think it was David Kirkpatrick, probably another Irish American, in the New Yorker. He came up with that 3.4 billion figure that they've increased. And I think the most recent numbers are that he's up to 4 billion that they've family. And Trump is the patriarch of that family. And I just can't. I'm sorry. Like, from the outside looking in, it looks massively corrupt on so many levels. And he, like, for the G20, I think didn't he have a G7 meeting in one of his golf courses in 2019, if I remember correctly. And for the G20 this year, he's holding it at another Trump venues. That's his organization personally enriching himself and his business, at the expense of the American taxpayer. That is the very definition of corruption. And I just cannot get away. I just can't get away from that. I'm pro-business, pro everybody being able to make a fair buck. But this is outright, naked, stripping down of all the legal and constitutional guardrails that were there in the past that turned out to be, chocolate fire guards. They're not real. These guardrails are not real to protect the American public from, this kind of rampant corruption that I'm seeing before my eyes. I'm actually quite shocked at it on so many levels.
Interesting. Yeah. So to kind of circle back to that Duffy case, from the outside, that's just another link in the chain, another symbol of a regime, to use your word, that at the very least tolerates this.
Yes, at the very least it tolerates it. And if you tolerate it, I've said this in the past, worked in plenty of organizations over the years, that if at the very top, the leadership is rotten, and they don't have to be rotten, they just have to be incompetent. That feeds right down into everything else, every single strata of... You talk about the opposition there, but the opposition are ultimately quite useless as well. Worse than chocolate fire guards. I've never seen such an ineffectual opposition. Hey, I mean, even Hungary were they were able to deal with Orban and get him out of office. And ironically enough, I think he's fleeing to the United States as we speak.
He's going to be Patel's number 2 at the FBI, I think.
Yeah, well, at least left somebody sober there. But so crypto is a big part of Trump's spiel in terms of he's trying to, deregulate finance through crypto. And is it his Trump media organization owns a couple of $1 billion in crypto?
Yeah. I mean, that is another huge and I think underreported issue. He has a publicly traded company, for listeners who don't know. It's called Trump Media and Technology Group. Yeah, they do have several $100 million worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet now. It is one of the most bizarre companies in the history of the financial markets. I don't exaggerate when I say that. And I've always thought it is kind of a weird thing, particularly in the context of this discussion, because it actually jumps out as an argument against the idea that Trump is purely corrupt, that his political decisions are made with the primary goal of enriching himself. The company is still worth $2.5 billion. This is a company that owns Truth Social, the social media platform we've talked about. They also have tried to launch basically like right-wing Netflix as part of their business plan.
I'm going to stop you in your tracks there right now. Our listeners in Europe, communists, liberals, all manner of terrible people. What exactly is right-wing Netflix? What is this? This sounds interesting. I mean, it sounds fun.
Their original business plan, they were going to do streaming video that reflected American conservative values. anti-woke, not Hollywood style. So family friendly things, whether documentaries about American history that were pro-America, pro-founding fathers, things like that. That was kind of how they positioned themselves. Unfortunately, the company has been so ridiculously badly run. He hired Devin Nunes, a former member of the House of Representatives, who's best known for pushing back on the so-called Russia collusion hoax and stuff. He was a big Trump loyalist.
He also sued a guy that impersonated him as a cow, Devin.
Yeah.
Nunes, didn't he?
Yeah. He sued Devin Nunes' cow on Twitter. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
which was, I think, might have been thrown out as well, something mad. But I mean, suing a cow on X is it's kind of a modern kind of, parable for our times.
It really is. Yeah.
Suing a fake cow, oh my God. But Vincent, there's something quite admirable about a man who looks at the media landscape and says, you know what this circus needs? A bigger clown. Fair play to Trump, And most people respond to this kind of Trump's monopoly of power by filing complaints, hiring lawyers, and, writing stern op-eds in The Atlantic and The New Yorker and stuff like that. And Donald Trump responds, I suppose, in the same way a bear might respond to a picnic. He'll just come and eat your lunch, that's and scare people away and come to eat your lunch, and I'm scaring people away. He doesn't care, does he?
But that is the weird thing. He has not cared about this business at all. His kids have not cared. They actually had a legitimate opportunity to kind of do something interesting. They still have, I think, close to $2 billion in cash and Bitcoin. Last year, they announced that they were going to merge with a company that is trying to develop nuclear fusion.
How does that, I mean, we're going to do an episode soon on Ireland and nuclear power. So I'm interested in what Trump's got to do with nuclear fusion, because the minute somebody in Ireland goes, do we really want Donald Trump building our nuclear power plant? I mean, the argument is lost straight away there.
Well, this isn't even nuclear. This isn't nuclear power. This is like nuclear fusion, like the futuristic technology that most people think we can't actually do. Like, this isn't like a regular nuclear power plant. This is a company that claims it has created a breakthrough in creating nuclear fusion-based power, which essentially would end the energy industry. If you have this. And you ask what that has to do, it just circles back to our corruption thing, right? Which is basically, why did this company want to merge with Trump Media? In part is because Trump Media has a ton of cash and could fund their losses. But the obvious concern that rightfully should exist, but was just kind of ignored, is, well, if you are trying to develop nuclear fusion, which is an aggressive futuristic technology, isn't being half owned by the president of the United States probably a good thing for your business? Doesn't that help clear the red tape? And that's just where all this stuff has just gone off the rails. And that's kind of why the Duffy story is interesting, because it's, in and of itself, it sounds like, it's just, he's kind of breaking the norms. Maybe it's not that big a deal. All this stuff is just breaking the norms. And I think you're right in the sense that when you step back and take the totality of it, it really is kind of mind-boggling how much of it looks so bad. Even if I really don't believe that Donald Trump is sitting there in the Oval Office making these decisions to enrich himself, the problem is everyone else thinks that they can get what they want by promising him, or I think more often his kids, that they will be enriched by it. And we just see that over and over again. The thing I just don't get with Trump Media is why his kids have just treated this as a sideshow while they're chasing, meme coins and weirdo crypto schemes. They had a real business. They still have a real business. It is one of the stranger stories I've seen of late. Something I can't quite understand, other than the fact that I do think that, when you said, oh, well, I think either Trump's a stupid person or he's corrupt, there is a ton of stupidity around that family financially in a way that people, I don't think, quite understand.
Well, you say stupidity, I say corruption, and it is corrosive. It's incredibly corrosive. It will wear you down. And the Trump Media Organization isn't a spot of bother now, is it? I mean, the revenue, they made a net loss of $712 million for the last 5 months.
Yeah, now, to be fair, most of that is kind of accounting stuff, because a part of it is they bought Bitcoin at the peak.
Okay.
But yeah, they have this entire business, all this stuff, all this money to spend. Their revenue from True Social is like $1 million every 3 months. It's really staggering. It's staggering how poorly the business is run.
True Social, his main social media platform for the Trump World Media Organization, I think they have like 6 million monthly users, and compared to X, which is 300 million to that effect, and a billion, on Facebook.
Right. But it's still millions. There's still a base that you could advertise to. It is just a strange thing. The reason I bring it up, I don't know how you explain it, because I think one explanation in theory would be, oh, well, it's just corruption. It's a way for Trump to get paid. Well, nobody's paying them. And then the other explanation is, his supporters all bought this stock, from the beginning, because oh, Trump's a huge success. This is going to be a big deal. Why did Donald Trump allow Devin Nunes to run this company? They finally fired him last month, but why did his kids allow this politician to run a $1 billion business for 4 years? It's literally an unanswered question. And the funny thing is, I think if this question was, got out on the right wing, within 6 months, there'd be YouTube dives about, how Devin Nunes had video of Donald Trump eating puppies in a dungeon at Mar-a-Lago or something.
Wait, that's not true. It's not true? I'm convinced that was true.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to burst your bubble. You probably saw that somewhere else. That was on Blue Sky. They're into conspiracy theories now too. But yeah, it is one of the strangest stories, without exaggeration, of financial markets this century. I don't even know how you explain it, other than sheer stupidity.
Where politics intersects with social media is a specialist niche thing for me.
Of course, yeah. It's your happy place, right?
That's my happy place when I'm looking at data about that kind of stuff. I like looking at data. But the reason why Truth Social doesn't make a whole lot of money is because its main demographic is 55 to 64-year-old men in the United States.
Yeah.
And they're not buying stuff. They're not clicking on things to buy things. I know that as a man who's terminally online myself. I don't click on things to buy things, So
yeah,
the advertising is very niche, 55 to 64-year-old men that have in some cases, very strange views about the world. And they're very hard people to advertise to from the mainstream market. Volkswagen are not going to come in and pay you $50 million to advertise to these people, because they're such weirdos. Advertising executives have ruled out that demographic of society as somebody you can market to. That's why Truth Social is struggling financially.
I'm sure that's part of it. But you would think, again, even if you're not worried about corruption, you would think that they could do 100 million quarters based on political advertising, right? Every PAC in America should be buying time on. Yeah. But so again, it's just it is one of the weirder things to me. And to me, it is a lesson in the sense that I think people on both sides, they accuse him or they support him in long-term strategic thinking. And to me, this is just a screaming example of the fact that he actually doesn't do that. He's just an instinct guy. Somebody told him this was a good idea to start. He thought it was a good idea. He got bored. Doesn't matter that on paper his stake is worth $1.3 billion.
This is going to shock you, Vincent. This is absolutely going to shock you. But I agree with Trump here.
Okay.
Right? I think it was absolutely the right thing to do for him to start his own social media platform. The possibilities would have been endless and countless there with him, and he is such an outsized, ego, personality, call it whatever you bloody want. It was the right thing to do, but he's executed it terribly.
It was absolutely the right thing to do. It's just everything after that is unexplainable. In 2018, 2019, before the pandemic, everyone was looking at the polls going, well, he's going to lose in 2020. What is he going to do? And that's what everybody said. Oh, he's going to start Trump TV. Absolutely the most logical thing for him to do. Just why the haven't you done it? What's not logical is putting a member of the House of Representatives in charge of a business that had a market value over $20 billion at one point.
Well, and here's the thing. In America, and this is not confined to America either, I'm going to say, half the world wants their news to confirm their prejudices, and the other half wants their prejudices live streamed, and this is not a niche, this is a market.
Yeah, that's a very fair
there's
point.
a cynical, very deeply cynical political troll sign, shining through here. But this was a bloody whole market he had to himself. He could have made properly billions, and all he would have had to do was, maintain the service.
Yeah, and he also had an opportunity to get a little bit of revenge, because part of what fueled the speculation around him doing something in media and TV in particular was that Fox News kind of turned on him after January 6th. And after the election rigging and stuff. And so there were reports in 2021 that he wanted to go to TV specifically to take Fox News down. That was kind of his grand thing. He was telling people around him.
That's a great idea as well.
I think that there is an important lesson in terms of when people talk about what he's trying to do in the White House. Oh, he says this. okay, he might say this, but he's not going to be saying that in a month because he's going to get distracted. He does not do long-term stuff, even when it is so obviously in his financial interest to be long-term, as was the case here. He couldn't do it.
Trump has this kind of quintessential quality, and it's the ability to fail upwards while beating his chest that this was the plan all along. He had social media in the palm of his hand at one stage, and he's frittered it all away by appointing Nevin Doones, who likes to sue cows, internet cows, as its CEO. Do we know who's coming in as CEO? Is there
they have an interim guy who I think is a little bit more of a legitimate business executive, but they have not made a permanent announcement yet. But they have also kind of been so boxed in by what they've done for the last 4 years. They've put themselves in a position where it's a lot harder to actually run this like a real business. Literally every major decision they have made has hurt their ability to grow in the business that they originally targeted. It is just really, really strange.
So the Trump World Media Organization, Vincent, it has this crypto division. It's a very niche social media platform division, and it's weirdo nuclear fusion sci-fi technology division.
Yeah.
Well, I've spoken in front of audiences where I spoke about synergies and tried to link all three erroneously. It's just madness. It's pure madness. Business executive look at this and go, you have to break up those three companies straight away. That'd be the first thing I would think. But
and they actually are kind of talking about doing that. They are talking about splitting off the social media business.
Well, there you go. Tull is right again.
Yeah.
So,
but they may not be able to do that because it's very hard to split off a business that legitimately has $4 million in revenue.
And it's very hard to split off a business that kind of, sci-fi hasn't invented it yet.
That doesn't always stop American individual investors.
That's why Europe lags behind, my friend. That's why we're so poor. Yes, we're not innovative enough in our financial activities as well. Another reason why we're terrible. So
yeah, it is one of the stranger stories, but it's something that I do think it doesn't highlight malice or corruption, just a lot of incompetence, which I will say, based on our conversation before recording, incompetence, pleasingly enough for Americans, not limited to politics on our side of the pond. You guys had a fun little story about, maybe incompetence is a little too strong a word, but questionable decision-making. Is that a good way to put it?
Well, Vincent, now, as a far with a couple of focal off Squelga, and let me translate that to our American listeners as a man with a couple of words in Irish. Galway, and parts of West Cork and Kerry, they would be the heartlands of the Irish-speaking Republic of Ireland. And as somebody who speaks Irish, it's kind of important.
Right.
It's part of our heritage, part of our culture. I don't use it every day. I don't speak it every day. If I'm lucky, I talk to somebody once a month using it. So in Galway, particularly around Connemara, they take the Irish language very, very seriously. And I think it's important to them. It's part of their soul, it's part of their heritage, part of their culture.
It's seen as a response to Irish history too, right? Because the Irish language was repressed and nearly exterminated to not to over-exaggerate it, under British rule, right?
No, it's very true. I mean, you've got to realise places in Connemara were the areas that kept the language alive that would have otherwise died. So there's a real Gaelic revival in the 19th century that helped kickstart the language once again. So Galway West, up there in Connemara and other parts of Galway, in fairness. And, the president is from that part of the world. She's fluent in Irish. And you have to be fluent in Irish to be president. Not legally or constitutionally, it just looks better.
Right.
Mary Lou MacDonald, leader of the opposition, Sinn Féin leader of the opposition, was asked on the RTE Week in Politics programme about 2 weeks ago. And it's a central tenet of Sinn Féin's platform is, the revival of the Irish language. Mary Lou MacDonald was asked by Anya Lawler, the presenter on RTE, if you care about the Irish language so much, why are you not running a candidate that can speak Irish? And Mary Lou MacDonald replied in Irish, yes, he can speak Irish. Look, he can speak Irish. No, it's not great, but he can speak Irish. And he'd be able to take part in debate and all that kind of jazz. TG Cahir, the Irish language TV channel, are going to have an Irish debate. A debate off Squelga for the people that it matters to in that constituency, and it does. Now, it's come out today. Mark Lohan, the candidate for Galway West by-election, has directly contradicted his party leader, Mary Lou MacDonald, and what she said on national TV, by the way, he came out and said, my Irish isn't that good, my Gaeilge isn't that good. As you can imagine, that set off a kind of, some fireworks there.
Yeah.
Because you have your party leader on national television saying, yeah, our guy can speak Irish. And he's coming out saying, well, it's not good enough speaking on TV or in a debate. And this has caused ructions within Sinn Féin in Galway because they feel they should have had an Irish speaker representing them in Galway West. Do you think that's fair, Vincent?
From the outside, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so... No, what struck me about this story, Vincent, that this was flagged a couple of weeks ago, that Sinn Féin had its own little civil war going on there in Galway West. And they were telling the media, because it's a special election, because it's a by-election, all the media are decamped there because, everything else is kind of boring in the world outside the Trump world.
Yeah.
So they've all decamped to this Galway West constituency and they're sticking microphones in anybody who talked to them into their face. And they were saying, Mark Lohan doesn't speak Irish. He hasn't a clue of Irish. He's not a fluent Gaeilger. And everybody forgot about it till Anya Lawler asked the question, and Mary Lou McDonald said, no, he's fine. He can speak Irish. He's a couple of fuckle. He'd be able to debate in Irish. And he's completely contradicted her. So was somebody lying to somebody there? Was somebody not telling the truth to somebody? Because all the Sinn Féin members in Galway West were on the ball here saying that, he doesn't speak Irish. And Mary Lou went on national television said he does speak Irish. Credit to journalist. It's on the Irish Independent website. I think it was Aisling Maloney from the Irish Independent that broke this story. So it's caused a little bit of mirth. Now, Vincent, from the outside looking in, the 17 candidates running in Galway West, how many do you think speak Irish?
Well, you're saying it includes the Connemara, which is one of my favorite places in Ireland, by the way.
Really?
I absolutely love it up there. Given that it includes that area, you would think it would be high. I mean, I'll guess 7.
7?
Yeah.
You were being optimistic, my friend. Only 3 of the candidates.
I'm always optimistic. I was the one out here saying Trump isn't corrupt. Come on, I'm always sunshine and rainbows.
Only 3 of the candidates are fluent.
Wow, okay.
Fine Gael, Sean Kine, Míle Ní Fúnach, the Social Democrats lady, will get you to say that before the by-election, or pronounce that. And Aon2's Orla Nugent. So
I can't even do Aon2, let alone the...
Yeah, Aon2. Aon2. Lohan had a council seat for Sinn Féin. He was co-opted onto it, which means that he was given the seat for nothing. And he'd lost that seat, and I don't think he's going to win. We should say to our listeners, I put my neck on the line and said this Lohan fella won't win. And we had a poll out Thursday night that essentially confirmed all my musings on this podcast. So
yeah, that was last week when we covered the by-elections. Yep.
I predicted Sean Kine and Noel Thomas will be duking out for 1 and 2. The polls showed that with the Labour Party candidate in 3rd position. I don't think she's going to feature, to be perfectly honest, but I could be wrong. And I predicted Fianna Fáil fellow would be lucky to break 8%, and the poll came in 8% on the button from Vincent. So if you want the lotto numbers, if you want the Super Bowl lotto numbers, I'll give them to you.
Understanding that the Irish language is still spoken by a minority of people in Ireland and all that as an outsider, even with that in that context, 3 out of 17 strikes me as low. Yeah. It seems like a skill that if you were a politician, you might try to acquire simply because it might give you a little extra sheen, a little bit of extra jump. Are there people in Galway West, in the Connemara or elsewhere who are Irish speakers for whom proficiency in the language is something close to a deal breaker?
Up in the Connemara part, it probably not so much affects people in the city part of the constituency. Right. Once you go up to the city and head up towards the northwest there, it's a deal breaker for a lot of them.
How about that? Okay.
And Noel Thomas doesn't speak Irish. No, somebody may correct me on that, but as far as I'm aware, and Sean Kine does. In my time looking at Irish politics, people overestimate party support and underestimate personal support. Okay. And if Sean Kine is able to speak Irish up in that part of Connemara, and Noel Thomas isn't, that gives Sean Kine an edge. I think they'd be duking out for 1 or 2, having Irish under your belt as a proficiency. And being able to talk to people, I think that's a big deal. For me, that gives Kine the edge a little bit. The Social Democrat lady, Mida, she's not going to do well up in the rural hinterlands of Galway West and things like that. They would see her as what some people might call a little bit too woke and that kind of thing, It's very rural, very conservative. Not conservative as some parts in the United States, but it'd be fairly conservative. It'd be fairly conservative. And I do think media is one to watch. There's every possibility now that media speaks Irish and the Sinn Féin guy doesn't speak Irish. I think the Social Democrats may very well uphold Sinn Féin in this by-election, and that will cause ructions enough for Mary Lou MacDonald. It's going to be very hard for her to escape that death spiral that they're in now in Galway West at the moment.
Yeah, and when he makes just such an obvious unforced error like that, it makes it really hard to kind of disclaim responsibility or pass the buck, right? You're the leader of the party. You can't get that question wrong.
No, you can't get that question wrong. Yeah, I agree you can speak Irish. Tá Cointe Gaeilge agh. She goes on national TV and she tells a bit of a whopper because it's something that's very easily found out. And not only that, it's something people in her own party were telling the media 2 weeks previously.
Yeah, that's even worse. Yeah, I get that.
You know, I had got it in a text message. The text message I got was civil war within Sinn Féin in Galway West because their boy doesn't speak Irish and they wanted an Irish speaker. And I was kind of, it's one of those weird by-election things. But elections drive everybody mad, especially when there's nothing else going on. And I knew this. And the dog on the street in Connemara in Galway knew this. You know, one of the dolphins off the west coast of Cork probably knew about it. I'm kind of flabbergasted at a kind of leadership failure. Mary Lou MacDonald has turned this into a thing now. She told a whopper on TV. So she's alienated a lot of people in Galway West now by, you know, first of all, foisting the candidate on them and then lying about his ability. So Mary Lou's days might be numbered, Vincent. We might have to do a podcast on her political failings because, I mean, she's been leader of Sinn Féin for an awful long time now and she's very, very few political wins under her belt, and I don't think she can keep going on like this.
They're all going. Every time we do a podcast, everyone in Irish politics is on their way out.
Yes, that's me being pessimistic about Irish politics in general, but I just don't believe that Sinn Féin have had such few wins under their belt in the last 15 years, and that, you know, they couldn't capitalise really on crash. They couldn't capitalise on the house of living, on the housing crisis or cost of living crisis. They're failing to capitalise on anything, to be perfectly honest. Like, Pierce Doherty has been the opposition spokesman of finance in Sinn Féin for something like 15 years. So people are tired of looking at him as well. They might be tired of looking at government, but they're going to be tired of looking at him as well. All good things must come to an end, Vincent, even within Sinn Féin.
And all mediocre things too. Yeah.
Of course, yes. So, Vincent, all good things must come to an end, and so must this podcast. I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
And I'm Vince Martin. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.